If you could, for the speech tonight, if everyone could, please keep their hands above the table. And I know it's date night from some of you, but no inappropriate touching. That includes you, Lauren Boebert. No vaping either.
That was Republican Congresswoman Lisa McClain at last night's Washington Press Club Foundation event. I'll show you more of those remarks and some of Democratic House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries in just a moment. We'll see former disgraced Congressman George Santos get mocked. And I also want to have a discussion about the odd nature of these sorts of events in this current political environment, who gets invited, just the strange elements involved. We'll get to that in a second. But first, to respond to that, of course, hilarious to see Lauren Boebert get mocked for her ridiculous behavior at the Beetlejuice performance. And I would remind you of that video of her at the theater, but the last couple of times I've done that, my videos on YouTube have been restricted to inappropriate, I guess, which is pretty wild. Lauren Boebert was acting so inappropriately in public that YouTube can't show it to everyone. Yikes. So I'll just say, if you haven't seen the video from a few months ago, she was getting a little bit too touchy in all the wrong places, if you know what I'm saying, and got kicked out, was vaping, flipped off the employees, all that sort of stuff. So, of course, at an event like this that's supposed to be humorous, you gotta mock the embarrassment of Lauren Boebert. Before getting into what rubs me the wrong way about Lisa McClain being up there on stage and the whole vibe of this event, let's hear a little bit more from McClain.
We got to roll with the changes. But I do want to start off by thanking someone very special this evening, right? It was a little serious before I got up here, so I do want to start the evening thanking somebody very important. He's an Oscar winner, an Emmy winner, a two-time Olympian, and president of the Press Club. Thank you, George Santos. My apologies, he's not here. He's filming that cameo with Fed.
Before getting to Hakeem Jeffries' remarks, here's just one other moment from that speech that we'll use as the jumping off point for a conversation about this.
When I got this invitation, I got to be honest with you, I kind of thought it was a prank. I mean, you've had so many remarkable speakers. Tim Scott, Steve Scalise, Joni Ernst. Why on earth would you want a little hillbilly from Romeo, Michigan coming to talk to you? But then I figured it out. Y'all thought my last name was McCain. You thought you were getting some moderate. You didn't realize you were getting some Trump-loving MAGA Republican, right?
Okay, so she has also formally endorsed Trump for president, did so a while back, actually. And I promise we'll get back to the fun stuff, Hakeem Jeffries, but I want to have a conversation within my community about what we feel about what I'm about to go through, because I'm sort of emotionally conflicted about it. So events like this one, or the White House Correspondents' Dinner, are an effort to inject a little bit of lightheartedness, a little bit of humor into the tense environment that is politics. And that as a concept, I really like. But to me, and as I go through this, just know, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. I want to have fun too, you know. But to me, it's crazy that we'd invite McClain up on stage, treat her like some normal congresswoman when she's supporting the guy who could end American democracy. Something's off about that. And I know any Republican who may be watching this will go, oh, that's hyperbolic. It's not. I've spent hours on this channel detailing in a fact-based way exactly how that's the case, so feel free to dive into that content. And so if a lot of the left of center political world is willing to admit, as many people are, that Trump getting a second term could pose an existential threat to the foundation of our democracy and to the rights of people across the country, isn't it a little weird to giggle your way through a speech from someone who's trying to get that person into office? Again, I try to be lighthearted on this show as often as I can, because otherwise we're going to lose our minds. And I have a bunch of friends with different political views. So it's not that you have to agree with every element of someone's political stances to have a good time with them. Of course not. But in this moment, with the stakes of this election, does anyone else feel a little weird seeing things like this with MAGA Republicans like Lisa McClain? And by the way, if she were supporting Nikki Haley, I wouldn't be saying this. I disagree with Nikki Haley on so dang much, but she wouldn't end American democracy. And so we're in the middle of this heated debate, rightfully so. Many people in the room at that event are reporting every day on how Trump threatens democracy. And then we just suspend that knowledge, suspend that debate altogether temporarily to treat Lisa McClain and other MAGA Republicans as normal politicians for a night. And to me, it's the media and institutions treating MAGA like that confuses the general public. If someone were to come across these clips, they'd have no idea we're 9 months away from an election that could determine the fate of American democracy. That just wouldn't at all apply to the vibe in that room. And it's the same issue that bothers me in interviews with individuals like McClain on networks like CNN, for example. It's too normal. Every question should be, are you okay with the fake elector scheme? Nope, we're not moving on. Are you okay with the fake elector scheme? We'll be looking at a clip in a different segment today, or maybe on the bonus show, Rusty Bowers, the former Arizona Speaker of the House, explaining how Trump and Giuliani called him and were pressuring him to just throw out the lawful electors and install fake ones. And he was giving sort of his take on that in this PBS documentary. Just, no, we don't want the law. Come on, throw those out. Pick the electors you want, which should be me, and then I'll just win Arizona even though I lost. That was the message. Unilaterally declare Trump the winner of Arizona, even though he lost. That would have disenfranchised millions of voters that were trying to do that nationwide, and is so undemocratic, obviously. Luckily, Bowers stood up for democracy and refused. So every MAGA Republican should be confronted about that in every interview with mainstream media and the broader plot. Or ask them, do you stand by Trump viciously pressuring Mike Pence to reject the lawful electoral count and refuse to certify Biden's win? Do you stand by other MAGA Republicans trying to get Trump to deploy the military to stop the peaceful transfer of power? Ralph Norman. And again, I know I sound like the guy who just can't have any fun. My middle name is fun, so you can just cut it out with that. But if we really believe, as I do, and I think most of my audience does, the American people need to know that Trump could end democracy. He's running on a platform of locking up his political opponents, invoking the Insurrection Act to crush demonstrations against him. He's calling for the termination of the Constitution on True Social. If we want the American people to know those things, we have to act like it. And inviting McClain up on stage to have a good old time talking about how she's a MAGA Republican, but it's not that serious, sends the message that, oh, it's just talk. We don't really mean it. We're going to be fine. But it's not just talk. It's as real as it gets. If Trump had gotten his way in 2020 and 2021, he would still be president right now despite losing. People around him were communicating the message to staff members that he was saying, I'm just not leaving despite losing. Just not leaving. And by the way, to give CNN credit on this, here's what happens when you do confront a Republican about their past actions around that time. This is the clip of Caitlin Collins asking Ralph Norman if he regretted pushing Mark Meadows, Trump's chief of staff, to get Trump to invoke martial law. He spelled martial wrong, but he was trying to say martial law, which would be to seize military control of the government to prevent the peaceful transfer of power.
Voters. And you say the voters should be the ones to decide. Obviously, everyone agrees with that. But when you talk about what the voters decide, I have to ask you, because you and I have never spoken before in an interview, about a text message that you sent to Mark Meadows. It was 3 days before President Biden was inaugurated, and you were urging the White House to use the U.S. military to prevent the peaceful transfer of power. Do you regret sending that message?
The only thing I regret, I misspelled martial law. I misspelled that. No, I didn't. Look, everything happened so quick in that election.
He doesn't regret calling for a military coup. So, no, I don't want to hear about your stance on energy or your stance on taxes or anything else. All we're going to talk about, so that every American understands who you are, is how little you care about democracy. You aren't getting invited to fun press events. You aren't being treated normally. You're not being interviewed normally until you join the chorus of former Trump supporters and administration officials, which there are a bunch of them, saying Trump is a threat to democracy. So that's what weirds me out about these sorts of events. It's like we're going through the motions of a normal political time in a time that's anything but normal. Let me know your thoughts on all of that in the comments. But with that being said, here's Hakeem Jeffries.
And then, of course, in the middle of the next month, we narrowly avoided a government shutdown for the second time. And then a few weeks after that, George Santos was expelled, removing the only gay astronaut ever elected to the United States Congress. It was an extraordinary first year in the Congress, in leadership. Over that holiday, I had to ask the question, what exactly have I gotten myself into? And then I looked at the bright side. I could be Mike Johnson.
Very funny. Again, I'm going to be Debbie Downer here. Mike Johnson was on board with blocking the peaceful transfer of power as well. So I know that's not a joke you would tell on stage, but it should be noted, just at least on this show. And by the way, the reason why you're going to hear these rants from me constantly in the lead up to the election is because people just don't get it. In so many conversations in my personal life, once I walk through the fake elector scheme, the pressuring of local officials to engage in fraud, the Mike Pence scheme, the inciting of a mob to block the peaceful transfer of power by blocking the certification of the election, Trump's calls for the termination of the Constitution, him saying the government should come down hard on media outlets he doesn't like, him saying he will lock up his political opponents in second term, his plans to uproot the bureaucracy and staff it with only loyalists so no one will push back against him, etc. People 10 times out of 10 go, oh my goodness, you're right, he is a threat to democracy. But 9 times out of 10 say most of that I'm hearing or at least grasping for the first time. So assuming everyone gets it and then going back to having a good old time and doing interviews with MAGA Republicans is how we lose our democracy. So do the fun press events, but just don't invite people who are fine seeing democracy come to an end in the country. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. Woohoo! A great note to end on, and become a member at lukebeasleyshow.com/membership.